And we'll start off with my far left, your right. We have Representative Leila Staffler, the Chair for Education. To her right, we have Representative Christina Sablan, the Chair for Health and Welfare. Next to her, we have Representative Ed Probst, the Chair for Gaming. To his right, we have Representative Sheila Babauta, the Chair for Natural Resources. And to her right, we have our floor leader, Representative Ralph Yumo. I am the Chair for Ways and Means, Donald Magnolia, and then moving over to my far right, we have Representative Richard Lizama, the Chair for PUTC. To his left, we have Representative Patrick San Nicolas, representing Tinian. To his left, we have Representative Anita Yantamai, the Chair for Commerce and Tourism and Cannabis. And next to her, we have Representative Vicente Camacho, the Chair for Federal and Foreign Affairs. And assisting the committee today, we have our LB staff. Over here in PIC, we have our legislative assistant, Mr. Giovanni Taitano, and next to him, Mr. Cameron Nicholas. And then the committee's fiscal analyst is Mr. Dave Nemapan, and legal counsel, Joe Tyrone, and our IT personnel, Jonathan Diaz, and Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Dennis Regis. Good afternoon and welcome, IP and your team. Today we are going to discuss the governor's proposal under the general fund, as well as volume 4, which is new to the committee. That's the governor's proposal on the American Rescue Plan. And also we have some of the federal funds under volume 2, in which NMC is a recipient. So before we move on to opening the floor for questionings, I will hand over the floor to you, IP Elliptical, to introduce your team and provide any opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Magnolia. Good afternoon to the members of the House Ways and Means Committee. I'm here, of course, with the most amazing team in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands at Northern Marianas College. I am accompanied, of course, by Ray Muña, who is our apprenticeship director, Patricia Coleman, who is our interim dean for NMC Greece, Rachel Fusco is our CIP director, who's leading a lot of the growth and future development of the college. Dave Atau is our CFO. Charlotte Cepeda is our interim vice president for learning and student success. Nicole Babalta is our SBDC director. SBDC was formerly with the Department of Commerce and now is back at its home at Northern Marianas College. We also have with us in the gallery Ms. Polly Mosca, who is our HR director, Reynard Trevilla with our marketing office, Alexis, I said Palacios, but she is Magnolia now. She recently got married, with our OSAL, Office of Student Activities and Leadership, Nita De Leon Guerrero with our Career and Services Office, Hedwig Hofschneider with our Project PROA, Mike Oko, who is Program Manager for NMC Greece, overseeing aquaculture, the aquaculture program. And I believe that is it. We will be joined probably by a couple of other team members, including some of our regents who may be joining shortly. Chairman.
Thank you, and also recognizing the Chair for JGO, Representative Selena Babalta. All right, thank you, IP Elliptical. At this time, we now open the floor to you to provide any presentation to the committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Having known that you have just sat through another hearing, we don't want to take too much of your time, and I know it's late in the afternoon, so we will make our presentation really brief and compressed, and I'm going to ask others who are speaking along with me to also be cognizant of our members probably receiving information overload. So if you have any questions, we're going to go ahead and speed through the presentation. And I know this is a budget hearing, but no budget hearing is complete without also sharing some of the challenges that we face because that is why we're asking for some of the funds that we are asking for, but also some of the accomplishments. We believe in accountability and transparency of the funds that we receive from the various sources of funds from federal and from local funding sources. So it wouldn't be NMC without starting off with a short video. And we do this just because we're also celebrating our 40th anniversary, and we also know that there are members of the House and Senate and legislature and throughout the government who are a Northern Marianas College alumni, and we want to make sure that we make them proud also when we play this video. So please ask for your indulgence. This is a 2-minute video.
For more than 40 years, Northern Marianas College has been transforming the lives of thousands of individuals here in the NMC. This year, we are celebrating 40 years of excellence. Happy anniversary, NMC. Happy 40th anniversary, NMC.
NMC, happy 40th anniversary.
Happy 40th anniversary, Northern Marianas College.
From all of us here in the mayor's office.
Happy 40th anniversary, NMC.
Happy 40th anniversary, Northern Marianas College.
Happy 40th anniversary, NMC.
Happy birthday, NMC from MRS. Happy birthday, NMC from Primary ISU. Happy birthday, NMC.
Hey NMC, happy 40th anniversary.
Happy 40th anniversary, NMC.
Happy 40th anniversary, NMC.
Happy 40th birthday NMC.
Happy anniversary, NMC. 40 years and many more to come.
Happy 40th anniversary, NMC.
Happy 40th anniversary, NMC.
Happy 40th anniversary, NMC.
Happy 40th anniversary, Northern Marianas College.
Thank you for supporting the Northern Marianas College for more than 4 decades. We look forward to partnering with you for many more years.
So we just did that video this morning. We're wearing the same clothes. So, I'm just kidding. But again, we started this off because we are a 40-year-old institution, and we have been coming here probably for 40 years, and we appreciate the support and the commitment that legislators have over the years have given to the college to support the cause. We continue to grow and we continue to expand the services. Just earlier this afternoon at 12 o'clock, not 1 hour ago, we were giving a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce and highlighting the presentation, the partnerships that we have with NMTI, with PSS and other organizations that is allowing us to expand the different programs that we have at Northern Marianas College. So one of the things that I did last time when I spoke here in front of the House Education Committee, chaired by Congresswoman and Chair Leila Staffler, we were able to highlight some of the graduates from last year. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we did not have a graduation ceremony for our class of 2020. So what we did this year was we had an in-person ceremony just for students over 3 venues because our students did not want a virtual ceremony, or they did not want a motorcade. So we compromised and had the ceremony in person, but just for the graduates in the facilities. So I also want to take this opportunity every chance I get to highlight some of these graduates because they're simply amazing, including Kennedy James. I don't think anybody calls him James, but Kennedy Benjamin, who is with the Army Reserve, David Bukayo, who is at the Hyatt Regency, Mark Flores, who just joined BECQ as an environmental technician, Grace Mendiola, who is at the WIC program here at CHCC, Gerald Flores, who is a Department of Public Safety police officer, Wendy Lynn Escoda, who is with the Marianas Eye Institute, Elaine Enriquez, who is a substitute teacher at WSR PSS, Roche Mendiola, who's a teacher aide at the Sinapalo Elementary School, Laurelyn Lakai, who is with the Healthy Transitions Program as a wraparound coordinator, Elderbert Javier, Regional General Services at IT&E, El Bernardo, who is a bookkeeper at Kalayan Inc., Jackie Pastillas, who works as an admin officer at the Granite Construction, Jason Ray Palacios, who is a 2-year graduate, but now is a 4-year graduate, and who is a customer service supervisor at IT&E, Mark Venus, who is at the Casino Commission, and Marjorie Hoste, who's an accountant at the JC Tenorio Enterprises. These are just some of the students, again, less than 5%, less than 10% I've highlighted. And the reason I highlight these students is because I wanted to stress that our students are not just students. They are in our community, they are working, some of them are working 1 job, 2 full-time jobs. Some of them are doing that in addition to providing for their families or caring for their elderly, caring for their parents, caring for other folks. And so they are contributing to this economy and helping to power up the growth and regrowth back to our, hopefully our pre-pandemic levels. So I wanted to make sure that they're highlighted, and there are many more I wish I had the time. The number of graduates at the college continues to increase. The latest figure that we have is approximately also 250 students or 250 degrees conferred. So we remain strong, over 100% increase from about 10 years ago. So more and more students are looking to NMC for their professional growth and development. Our enrollment continues to be strong. In fact, pandemic, typhoon, no matter what the disaster was, we've been able to continue a strong enrollment because of our strong relationship with the public school system and the expansion of programs at NMC. I won't spend too much time, Chairman Manglonia, on what the college had done for the pandemic and to prepare for the pandemic and to continue the operations at the pandemic, only to stress that the college did not cancel any programs. We did not postpone any programs. We continued in an online environment. And when it was safe to do so, we were starting to peel back some of the restrictions. And now some of our classes, many of our classes are in a face-to-face format. Beginning in the fall of 2021, which is in August, we will have more than 70% of our classes on a face-to-face modality. Why not 100%? It's because we've also learned during the pandemic that many students preferred online classes or were thriving and succeeding in an online environment because it afforded them the opportunity to continue their jobs and continue all the other obligations they had to meet without having to attend classes in person. So we wanted to stress that we're not going back, the college is not going back to pre-pandemic levels. That world will no longer exist for us. What is going to exist for us? How is the college adapting? Just like all the hundreds and thousands of colleges and universities, how are they adapting? And how did they use the pandemic to learn, to maximize learning and continue the integrity of the classes, even in the pandemic and after the pandemic. That's our focus now. So we want to make sure that our message today is not that we're going back to those pre-pandemic levels. It's what did we learn in the pandemic and how are we moving forward. In the meantime, we're still also welcoming students, of course, are on campus. We're having student activities face-to-face. We are making sure that we are enforcing COVID-19 restrictions, including asking students to stay home if they're sick, keeping their distance. Face masks are required on campus, and many other improvements have been made to our facilities. Some of you have been on campus to view some of these facilities. We do continue to have degree programs in bachelor's and associate's levels in various areas, including business management, nursing, business administration with various emphases, including accounting, business management, computer applications, and others in high demand here, including nursing. And I'll talk a little bit about that because that's important. We also have certificate programs for those who are not pursuing a degree, but we do have certificate programs in the programs that are listed here, including hospitality operations, fire science technology, basic law enforcement, and for our police academy and our fire academy, and we're going to be announcing other academies within the enforcement community. We also have, most of you are familiar with CDI, the Community Development Institute, that offers custom programs that offer training and development programs that fit the needs of various organizations, both private sector and public sector. So we work with individuals, agencies. This is our Framingham, but this is a photo of one of our cohorts for MVA, where we work with them in offering a tour guide certification program. So all the tour guides have to go through some for particular training, and then that results in certification to be able to function as a tour guide operator in the CNMI. We offer programs like report writing and other short-term development programs for like DPS, like I said, DFEMS. We are right now in the middle of the DPS Fire Academy. We will be launching the, the DFEMS Fire Academy in just a few weeks. I think the recruitment for that is going on. On Friday, we're signing an MOA with the Department of Customs for the Academy for the Customs Enforcement personnel. And in a few more weeks, we're going to be signing an agreement with the Department of Corrections to be able to train their personnel. So we continue to enforce, not enforce, but expand the enforcement training that we have at NMC, including some of the programs that are in the pipeline. As a result of this pandemic, we're also cognizant of the need for additional healthcare workers here in the CNMI. So some of the things in the pipeline are programs like the medical lab technician program, the radio lab technician program. We have a pre-engineering program that we're launching this coming fall. The certified nursing assistant program we're offering this summer. Unfortunately, we had an overwhelming response to that program, and we had more applicants that we had capacity for. So we weren't able to accommodate all the applicants. What we're trying to do, expand the number of classes that we can offer. And the issue with that is really one of the challenges that we face is recruiting instructors and being also able to pay them at levels that they're able to receive in other places like this, at the continental US. It's really a hard field to recruit for healthcare training instructors at Northern Marianas College, but we do what we can because we know that industry is something that we need to continuously expand the programs for. We already received, it was in the newspaper that we received an EDA grant to house our nursing department, so we're trying to make sure that, something's whistling, I hope that's not me. It's like, I hope that's not whistling for me to stop, like, that's enough. Not right. Okay, I can keep going as long as the chairman says you can keep going. But we also have the early childhood program. We're partnering with the 500 Cells Maritime Training Center. They're submitting a Maritime Training Center EDA application So we've signed a commitment letter to them to be able to offer the participants an opportunity to earn a college degree while they're getting that training. So this is just some things in the pipeline. At the last meeting we had with the House Education Committee, you also mentioned that we received a grant for the apprenticeship program. And I'm going to ask Ray Munoz, our apprenticeship coordinator, to spend a couple minutes on what that is and what that entails.
Thank you, Abby. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize Congresswoman Leila Staffler, and also, she's not present right now, but Senator Edith Bilonguro. They've been really helping and assisting the subcommittee on policy and development under the state apprenticeship expansion grant. So thank you for your assistance. We really appreciate it. So again, my name is Ray Munoz. I am the program manager for the state apprenticeship expansion grant. Now in this grant, we are strengthening the existing partnerships with the Northern Marianas College, the Northern Marianas Technical Institute, CNMI Department of Labor, CNMI Public School System, and also the businesses, the private sectors within the CNMI. So again, it's about strengthening the existing partnerships because 2029, ladies and gentlemen, it's tomorrow. So we need to focus on that. Next slide. So with apprenticeship, I mean, there's like what IP Frankie had mentioned in multiple occasions, the trajectory of education. It's sorry, a little too excited. So with education, right? It's no longer where the institution is recommending to the private businesses of this is what we offer. You need to abide by curriculum. Now the paradigm shift is basically what the private sector needs. All right, so that's really the focus. All right, so that is the shift, right? And with an apprenticeship program, it's really catered to employer buy-in. So in this case, it's the businesses that will partner up with the Northern Marianas College, with NMTI, in creating these certification programs. So it's really about it's classroom instruction plus OJT, OJL, and there's a wage progression in the end, right? Because ultimately we would want a skilled and certified workforce here in the CNMI, again, to address the needs of the CNMI when 2029 comes, okay? Again, it's employer driven, and really it's, again, the specialized training. So whatever the employer would need, it would be in accounting, leadership training, construction, and the outcome for these apprentices when they go through the OJT, OJL would be a nationally recognized credential that will be used in the CNMI. So I really like this particular picture. You have multiple agencies, right, involved, and each agency, each cog, it turns each other. So for this system to work, you need all those agencies: NMTI, NMC, PSS, private sector, the SWDB, the State Workforce Development Board, WIOA, all need to move unison, and at the same time for CNMI workforce to work in the CNMI, right? So these are our members for the advisory committee, right, under the grant. So you have some members from the public school system, from the private sector, from NMTI. So it's a variety, it's a diversity of different members within the CNMI that could assist with this grant. Okay, so what we're trying to create is a system for agencies, private sector, even government employees, right, to take part of workforce development here in the CNMI. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. And one of the things that we in building the grant that we received at Northern Marianas College is to build the infrastructure of the apprenticeship program for the CNMI. So it's not an NMC apprenticeship program, it's the CNMI apprenticeship program that NMC received the grant to be able to establish the infrastructure. So like Ray mentioned, it's going to take a combination of all these individuals that you see listed, but also we need your meaning the legislature to be able to help us pass some bills and legislation that would help establish, probably incentivize the hiring of apprentices by businesses so that they can also get some sort of, either it's a tax credit, business credit, or what other incentives, like that in Guam they have, in many other states they have incentives that allow businesses to receive some sort of benefit when they hire an apprentice. And I won't get too far too deep into the benefits of hiring an apprentice, because we can talk for hours on that. But we really want to make sure that we put that on your radar, because we will be coming back with legislation requests or proposals that will advance the infrastructure program. Again, this is not an NMC apprenticeship program. This is a CNMI apprenticeship program that we're working closely with PSS, NMTI, and the CNMI Department of Labor. So with that, I'm going to shift gears now and talk CREASE, and I'll give the floor to Patty Coleman, who will talk about some of the projects that she's working on with her team at NMC CREASE.
Thank you, IP. So CREASE, we have two main functions. We focus on research, which everyone here knows about, and extension. And extension is actually taking the research and putting it into practice in order to improve and enhance. Yeah.
Can you expand on what CREASE stands for?
Sure. Cooperative Research, Extension, and Education Services. You're welcome. So as I was mentioning, the extension is taking the research, putting it into the use of our people, put it into use of our community to enhance and improve their lives. Go ahead, IP. So this is something that this data was actually from 2014, and this is oh, sorry. I'm too close to the mic as well. This is part of our food cost study. So what we do is we take the Thrifty Food Plan, which is actually the food plan that the Food Stamp Office uses to determine allocations for the various states. And what we did was it tells a very important story about the cost of food for the Thrifty Food Plan for a family of 4 in the CNMI. So a mother, father, and two children. So when we took that data and we looked at and we adjusted it for the year that it was collected based on the 2000 census data, we found that in order for people to afford the Thrifty Food Plan, they have to spend a significant part of their income just on food. So this is part of the research that we use to inform some of the work we do, in addition to the 4 advisory councils that we have for the 4 programmatic areas at CREASE, which are agriculture, aquaculture, nutrition and health, and family and community and youth development. And each of our sections has an advisory council made up of a diverse group of people from across the CNMI. So some of you who may have heard, we have been continuing to work towards improving agriculture. One of our initiatives focuses on plant biotechnology, with a particular emphasis on tissue culture. So tissue culture focuses on plants that do not use seeds to reproduce. Some of the advantages of using tissue culture are that it puts us in a better position to do year-round production. There's more vigor carried on from the plants, and we can clone plants so that the quality of the plant and of the produce is maintained over the long term. We also are conducting some variety trials, and I have some show and tell today. So raise your hand if you've tried our CREASE cantaloupe. Yeah. So this is we're on our 3rd round. Dr. Viv was on his 3rd round, of cantaloupe and melon trials. And when people look at this, they're like, oh, that's imported. But I'm like, smell it. Taste it. It's way better than the imported. But every year we import thousands and thousands of pounds of cantaloupe and melons. And can anyone guess how many days it took us to grow this?
There was nothing there when we visited, so I don't know.
Great memory, Chairwoman. So this actually, our first harvest took us 42 days. So we have an 80 by 160 foot field. And you can see Dr. Verma in there talking to some of our farmers about the variety trials. So we feel that this is a very suitable displacement for the importation of cantaloupes and melons. And again, keeping that money in the CNMI and giving our people, the ability to make money in a way that they feel very proud of. There's also been tremendous interest, a reawakening in growing our own food locally. And so we received this award for agroforestry. And what agroforestry is, it's a regenerative way of growing food and ornamental plants. So it's regenerative in that we take the soil and the conditions of the soil and actually improve them from when we found them. So it's a couple of steps above sustainable. And part of our project for this, which of course there's been some challenges because of the pandemic, is to have people ready to do agritourism. So giving people experiences that they can use in a way that has very low cost overhead. And if they're not doing that, they're still able to produce their own food and ornamental plants for them and their families. We're also working closely with the Tinian leadership and Congressman San Nicolas. We saw him not too long ago to really build on the legacy of ranching in the Tinian community. And so we are hoping that in June, we will get the conditional certification for the USDA slaughterhouse. And at that same time, we're hoping by August to have our food scientists at the college that will be able to help scale up even further and do some value-added processing for the Tinian beef. We want to, supply everybody's tinala across the region. So this is really exciting, and I'm so glad we have our aquaculture program leader, Mike Ogle, with us. So many of you might remember the late Tony Pellegrino, a great businessman. And Tony Pellegrino, while he had his shrimp business, he was actually the second largest exporter in the nation of brood stock. Right, Mike? And Mike Ogle played a huge role in that through his, being able to provide technical expertise, and through strategic international partnerships, we were able to get that market open for Tony Pellegrino. So these are just a couple of the things that we're doing now, and we have the permission of these particular businessmen. Some don't want their information shared, and we totally respect that. So Mike is working with Ed Calvo, Steve Jang, and James Matsumoto on some different things, hydroponics, aquaponics. And then we're also, we just finished our aquaculture laboratory renovations. And so Mike's moving towards vertical crab farming, which is a very interesting, low cost, innovative way to raise crabs. Another product that, especially during tourism times, is highly imported into the CNMI. Open ocean cage culture, that's an illustration of an open ocean cage. And we are also looking at the aquaculture park, which is the next slide concept. So we've had some challenges, but we hope that we will have a feasibility study completed by the end of the year at latest, if not earlier. And the concept for the aquaculture park is to act kind of as a business incubator and help with some of the administrative hurdles that come with having an aquaculture business while providing on-site technical expertise to the people occupying that. We've also engaged with the private sector and government sectors. And of course, you all know that some of the concerns are, that employees need more soft skills, leadership development. So through the efforts of Ms. Tena Bellew Camacho and her team, we have been focusing on youth development and many other areas in community and economic development as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. We also, many of the programs that we mentioned, I want to emphasize that they are also in some way on Tinian and Rota, as Patty mentioned. We do have academic courses, the adult schools, there's different programs. what we are emphasizing at the college is this, not a one-size-fits-all approach. We are trying to work with the community of Rhoda, community of Tinian, and the different needs that each of them has, and making sure that the programs we have on those islands fit those needs. It's not that, hey, this is what we need on Saipan, let's also do it on Tinian and Rhoda, because that has not worked in the past and it will never work. So we are also very cognizant of what is going on Tinian with regard to some of the military activities, and of course in some of on Rhoda with some of the other activities, and making sure that we're providing programs for those. Unfortunately, our Tinian and Lutano representatives and employees are not able to join us today physically, but they're of course able to answer any questions to our representatives from those islands. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Nicole Babata to quickly speak about the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, which used to be housed at the Department of Commerce here in the CNMI. But before that, it was at NMC. So now it's coming back home, or it came back home to NMC.
Thank you, Hafa Day. So the CNMI SBDC nationally was established in 1980. In the CNMI, it reopened in 2010 under the CNMI Department of Commerce. What we do is the CNMI SBDC provides confidential one-to-one free business advising services. We also host small business trainings, as well as give our people access to business research. Through the CARES Act funding, we were able to employ 3 business advisors. Ms. Maxine Laszlo specializes in COVID-19 and marketing, and she's here on the island of Saipan. For the island of Tinian, we do have Mr. Alan Perez, who specializes in accounting, finance, and real estate. And for the island of Rhoda, we do have Mr. Jared Inselman, who specializes in project management and strategic planning. Just to recap what the CNMI SBDC has done since 2017, and this is for Saipan, Tinian, and Rhoda. Through our efforts, we've been able to help retain 1,508 jobs, infuse 6.9 million into the CNMI's economy, and be able to train a total of 1,438 individuals. Additionally, we are helping with any of the SBA COVID-19 programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Again, we're accelerating our presentation. I always want to speak about accreditation because this is a big accreditation year for the Northern Marianas College. We're in the 6th year of a 6-year accreditation cycle, and come October, we are going to receive a site visit from the WASC team. They are coming. We're on actually this morning, we were on a phone conference with IVP Shar, and they are confirming their participation. They were supposed to have come last year, but because of COVID and travel restrictions, there were no flights to Saipan. So now that they are, I did tell them there's only one hotel that's open right now. So we'll see how that pans out in October. But they said it's happening in October, and before they came, but before we had scheduled the visit, the team, there's already a team that is assembled to review NMC's report, which we submitted last January. They commended NMC on a number of things, but they also identified things that they were going to ask us about when they come. And those are called the lines of inquiry. And so here's a quick timeline of what kind of has happened and will be happening. So on September 1 of this year, we are to submit various documents that they are requesting. That includes certain reports, audits, and other standard documents that they require. We already submitted our institutional report. And then in October of 27 through the 28th, it's a 2-day visit. They're going to be on campus to interview me. It will be the new president. They will interview the new president, who will start on July 1. I'm sorry. It's like, sure. I'll still be there. They'll probably want to talk to me just because for many other things, but I'll still be there. Hopefully, my new boss, though, will be the main interviewee. But they'll be talking to a cross section of the whole campus community, faculty, staff, students, the different representatives of the constituent groups. We have a staff senate, we have a faculty senate, we have a student senate, we have alumni, we have various groups. So they're going to be talking to them about what they're doing and how they're interacting and how the overall sphere of accreditation is working at Northern Marianas College. We then will receive the word in, I think, February or March of next year, if NMC's accreditation will be renewed. So of the lines of inquiry that they will be asking, so they've already identified to us what they will be asking us about, and the items are listed here on the screen, including the presidential leadership, which we have addressed because at this time when this was raised up, I was serving as interim, still serving as interim, but at this time, this was a year and a half ago, they were inquiring about whether or not the college was moving forward with hiring a president. So that has been completed, so we can check mark that off the list. They've also indicated that they'll be talking to us about governance at NMC, strategic planning, faculty and staff retention, development, and things like that. Financial sustainability is one of the things I like to highlight when I'm here at the legislature, is because they want to know whether the college is a financially sustainable institution. They don't want to know that we have payless Fridays. They don't want to know that we don't have a sustained operations for our students. They don't want to know that students are questioning whether there will be a semester next semester, whether they have classes, whether they can continue their programs. That's why, not just for financial sustainability, that's why every disaster that's been thrown in our way, and we've seen many in the past 3 years especially, we've had to continue programs for our students, not just because we wanted our students to continue on to their degree, but we were also making sure that we showed to our accreditors that the college is a stable organization, come what may, whether it's a disaster in a physical disaster like a typhoon or a health disaster like a pandemic, that we are a stable organization supported by the community. And that's something we want to emphasize when they come. So we hope that that's going to be stressed throughout the visit. And lastly, before we talk about the ask here at the legislature, the future of the college, which all of you have I've shared some aspect of. We're working on, of course, the development of a new campus, a brand new campus. And we didn't want to share the dramatic photos of the damage that I've shown in previous presentations, but I'll show one just so you see. This is the 2 days after typhoon photo where we lost 85% of our campus. You don't really see it there, but when you're on the ground, a lot of the walls, a lot of the computers, we lost the student center, we lost the cafeteria, we lost the bookstore, we lost 85% of our campus. And we believe that no other campus in America, the whole America, has lost 85% of their campus in just a few hours. And to come the next day and to figure out, gosh, what are we gonna do? Because we're in the middle of the semester. And that's what we had to do. And I think we put our collective minds together, and with a lot of teamwork and a lot of amazing resilience shown by the team in this room and back on campus, we were able to come out of it okay. So we are taking that damage and we're turning it into the blank slate that it currently is. And are working currently, we're about to finish with the leadership of Rachel on my left here on a facilities master plan. 3 years ago, we didn't have money. There was not a lot of money in the Commonwealth to rebuild the college. We knocked on a lot of doors here, nationally, regionally, and many other places. And we've been able to secure some funding, but for every yes we got 10 no's. So I don't want to lead anyone to believe that for every grant that we applied, we got a yes. There was a lot of no's, and I can give you a stack of those no's. But thankfully, through the help of FEMA, the Department of Education, EDA, NMC was actually the first agency to receive an EDA grant, and we got our second one just a couple months ago. So we're the only agency in the CNMI to have received 2 EDA grants for buildings. And they're using the NMC's application as a template for other agencies in the CNMI. And we're pretty proud of that because no one told us. We didn't have a grants office. We just said, you know, with no power and no water, we need to find our own money. Because when we came to the legislature, and we did come to the legislature, and they were very helpful, but the ideas that were coming out was we should float a bond and let's take out a loan to pay. And we didn't believe at that time that, although they were very helpful, we wanted to say, man, we're going to go first and see what other funds are out there that we do not have to pay back. So that was our initial strategy, and I think we've been pretty successful at it. And we've been able to secure funds that will allow us to build at least 4 to 5, maybe 6 buildings without having to pay it back. The question now becomes, can we do it quick enough? Do we have the resources in place? Do we have the man and woman power in place to be able to move contracts along? Because of all the grants we've been able to find, Chairman Manglonia and members of the House Ways and Means Committee, we did not find any grant that would pay for personal expenses. Some of the personal expenses that have allowed us to be able to function just came through with regard to the CARES funds. And that's because the funding for the CARES have been allowed to expand to be able to pay for personnel. And this is just recent. It hasn't been, you know, we haven't had that for 3 years. We've had to make do. We've had to come down to 68 hours. We went to 72, 68, cut this, cut that, cut, you know, but we didn't want to furlough anyone. And we did not furlough anyone. And we want NMC to not be subject to just the whim. So we've been able to just live within our means. And that's what my message is today. As we rebuild our campus, we are working as Rachel is working diligently to finish the facilities master plan, which is the strategic plan by which the college will be designed, the entire campus, because we lost an entire campus. So we're not just building 1 or 2 or 3 buildings, we're building several. And this is what our campus looks like right now, aerial view. I want to show this overlay of the actual campus property, because we will be coming to you as the House Ways and Means, and if you can put it in the budget, as you can see the road on the top side there that faces the west, the road that is actually used is inside of NMC's campus. We need to push the road back to where the designation of the right-of-way is. The reason is we need every square inch of our property to build. And we've asked DPW how much that would cost to develop, and they said $1 million. Yes, and that's one of the grant requirements that we are receiving, is that we need to be able to use the property for the college, our own property. So we need to push the road back out. And DPW has given us an initial estimate of $1 million to be able to push the road back out. So please give them $1 million so we can use our property. And because right now the road snakes through the campus. As you can see, the road is supposed to go straight, and the road is actually supposed to be on the other side of that road, the water tank. But you enter through the other side of the water tank. And again, because of the limited size of our campus, we need every square inch. So we hope, that's one of our asks is to, so if you can see the development here, we need the road to go back out into the Fina-Sisu lane, the actual designated, official, super duper designated right-of-way to be the right-of-way. And that would take funds that we do not have, that we don't have grant funds for. So we're asking you to please help DPW, because we just need every square inch of our campus. One of the things, I'm speaking to all the legislators here, but I'm speaking especially to our Precinct 1 representatives, because one of the things that We are wanting, and this is not to alienate the other representatives because this is going to benefit everybody. We are also hoping to develop the area between Northern Marianas College and all the way down to the Shell gas station across from the Iglesia de Cristo. So we want our own commercial hub, and we want to make sure we put sidewalks there and make it a little college town, so that we can identify a walking space that will allow us to be to have students go walk about the whole campus. I mean, not the whole campus, the whole area without fear of getting hit, without fear of getting wet from the puddles that drivers will splash up when they drive by. But I've already spoken informally with members, business members along this boulevard to be the anchor, like Joe Tent can be the anchor of that area, and NMC will be on the other side, but really develop this so there can be cafes, boutiques, local owned restaurants, maybe pubs, other small businesses for that area. So you don't need to drive all the way to Garapan just to get a drink, because that's what I need to do right now from San Vicente. Yeah. Oh, and that's Precinct 5 also. Jay Davis of Precinct 5 too. Thank you for pointing that out. So I do want to share, again, this is something I've shared. We are working on the development of our campus. We want the whole community to be proud of the college and make certain that the whole, we build something that's resilient and technologically advanced. And that's going to take time, and we're working on that. We've secured the funds. We just need the funds to be able to help us fund the salaries of our individuals that work at the college so that these contracts, these programs can move forward. We've found the money to build the college, rebuild the college. Please help us fund the salary so we don't have to go back into a furlough, austerity situation where everything slows down because we only have one person in procurement processing massive contracts, or two people who are processing really big projects, and it's going to slow down. And these grants have time limitations. They are not going to last forever. If we don't use them, they will take them back. So I really implore you. We're going to hand it now to Dave to finish up with regard to the financial stewardship and the actual budget request.
Thank you, President, and Chairman and members of the House Ways and Means Committee and staff. NMC has been very diligent with the way it functions, and over the last 13 years, we've had clean audits. Prior to me, there were many other CFOs and members of the college that were very accountable and responsive to how we spend money and accumulate funds. And that was a sign of how do you become financially stable, right? We're showing our creditors that we are stable with all the help that you guys have been providing us over the many years, and showing that shows them that, well, the community really cares and understands what it means to be responsible, accountable, and diligent in what we do, right? So an audit provider, an external body comes in and evaluates that, and they take these things and they look at over the last 5 years of how we do and how we've corrected any mistakes and how fast we respond to those things, and make sure that we continue to steward the people's money carefully, right? And our students as well. NMC's been asking for funding since I've been at NMC for many years, in over $10 million range. We average about $6 million from the legislature every year. Everything else we've been getting from other grants and from student tuition and fees. This year is kind of different. We're asking for a little over $16.4 million. And this is because of what we just showed you about that blank slate, right? We need about $4.5 million to fund that. What the president was talking about, and I call him the president because he is, what he was talking about keeping our personnel, making sure that everybody's taken care of, whether it's locally funded or federally funded. It all comes to play in one way or another. It shows our sustainability and our financial stabilities. Bank power
We have a lot of entities on Laurentinian that are working through on our campuses, and they're represented there. We help cover their expenses as well. And then what we have on island, Saipan. One of the bigger differences that we have here is the matching for CREAS. CREAS gets over $3.6 million in federal funds, and we're supposed to match that every year. Luckily, or not really luckily, but the CNMI has been going through many challenges financially with our economic challenges, and they've been giving us waivers. However, we're still diligent in asking because, as you see, the melons that Dean Patty put here, I don't know what that green one is, but they make a difference in our lives, right? Not only in adults and farming and bringing new industries to different economies, but for our youth as well. And we're all just stewards here, right? We're just people holding the fort as we go along and bring forward the new future of the college and our community. This is not just the NMC, this is going to be the CNMI, right? Projects are going to happen here, Tinian and Rhoda, and maybe in the Northern Islands, we don't know. But that $16.4 million is really, it's a lot of money considering what we have now, but it's something that we've been working for, and we've not really diverted from this amount. The only difference is what we just mentioned about matching for CREAS, which is a community project, and also getting that campus rebuilt, and then keeping our teams around to make sure that we successfully continue forward. And, and when we talk about the personnel, we're asking for 149 FTEs, right? And earlier President Liptico talked about, bringing in more bodies to help us accreditation-wise. We do need a new librarian. We do need a new dean of different projects. We need that new enforcement individual and procurement to make sure that we're still compliant and we continue to get clean audits. We do need these individuals out there because when these guys are overworked, PTSD is a real thing at college, you can tell. And they're overworked and, unfortunately I'm gonna say this, underpaid. But they try and they work hard and they do their best and what we got, right? Just like everybody else in the community. But this team shows it a lot because they've been resilient and continue to do so. This $8.3 million that we asked for, I can go back first, is basically what we're covering now in personnel costs, in ways that we can find and to meet the needs of the college and our students and our communities that we serve. Right? We have 114 plus 8, a little bit over 122 individuals working right now, and we have 27 vacant FTEs. However, those FTEs are critically needed at this point in time, especially that we're coming across an accreditation year. The other thing that's critical for us is the fringe benefits. That was something that we just need to incorporate into the expenditures. When we average about $6 million coming into the NMC and personnel costs, people forget that we do have fringe benefits there, and that's important for us as well. And then on top of the project that DPW for an additional $1 million, that's something that we would appreciate help in us too. And we're not, like the president mentioned, we don't just wait around for money to come to us. We go get it, right? And NMC go gets it, and that mentality you carry when we leave here, we go into different entities and we go get it, right? That's something that we try and that's very much to do. And if you can see the diversification of our funds, 44% come from federal funds, and 31% comes from appropriations. The remaining comes from tuition and fees and other small projects that we do here and there, but it doesn't really make the difference of what the shortfall, what we really need every year, right? So, I mean, indirect costs on federal funds is not much. It's like close to $100,000. So you can't really count on that because grants are specific to what they need to do. But here's the butter is 31% comes from appropriations. And that's really what our main request for today is, what it comes down to. And this is consistent. I looked all the way back to 2008. I want to go that far, and it's pretty much plus or minus 3% difference in every time we ask for money. So it's not a major, right? We're not asking for a major change in the whole pot. It's just that what we need it for, we try our best to sustain, live within our means, like we asked for, and we're trying again to expand it so we can provide better services for our community. Thank you. That's all I have for now, and President.
And thank you, Dave. Thank you for giving us that opportunity, Chairman Menglonia, to share some of the progress and our needs. And we will gladly entertain your questions about any of the items we brought up today.
Thank you, IP, and happy 40th anniversary. And thank you to your key management and the faculty and staff, and even the students of NMC for all your hard work. And so, we're here today to ensure that, NMC is funded properly in order to continue the good work that you guys have been doing. And so with that, this will lead into the line of questionings that pertains to the budget. And so before I open the floor to the members, there are certain clarifying questions that I have that hopefully you can answer. And so in regards to FTEs, your total request for NMC alone is 149, but you did request 35 for under crease, which the governor took out or did not allot. And so how would that be funded through these federal funds, or how would that affect the NMC crease?
So crease is fully federally funded. And the waiver that the funding that we submitted for crease, the 1.6 million, is a match requirement from the Smith-Lever and the Hatch Act grants that we get. However, and as Dave mentioned, luckily we've been getting waivers because we've been able to justify using the disaster and economic difficulties that the CNMI is facing. But really, every other insular area, I believe, and every state has paid their matching requirement except for the CNMI, or at least CNMI is one of the very, very small minority of land grant institutions, and there's one per state and territory that has not matched that. So we anticipate on requesting, actually we submitted, Patty, the waiver request again, but we never know. And there is a new administration at NIFA who can say, we're not granting you the waiver. So you government, the CNMI government, need to match the 3 million that we're giving you. Otherwise, we're pulling the whole funding.
And that would affect the 35 FTEs under that program. All right. According to the governor's submission, he has proposed 3,031,000 under the general fund, 5 million under the American Rescue Plan. We have 750 under Compact Impact and 1.26 under contract worker, which comes out to a total of 10,059,000. Now you did mention that you need 8.3 million, but with utilities and personnel, your total ask, initially your total ask was 16,411,000, correct? And that was including the 35 NMC crease.
Yeah.
So if we take that out, Dave, are you able to calculate that?
Can I add also, Congressman, I know for the ARP funds, some of it was allocated to meet the prior year's obligations. So I'm not sure if it's fully FY22. We haven't seen what you're looking at, no? But I do know that some of the ARP funds may have been slated, and I need to verify this, to pay the prior year's obligations, because at the when we submitted the budget for NMC, the FY21 budget, because we're in FY22. I mean, no, sorry, the FY20 budget had not been fully paid yet. They have since paid it. This was, when was that date? Last April 20, yeah.
Right. Well, there were some of the ARPA funds that were distributed out for this fiscal year,
yeah.
But the volume 4, the governor had proposed 5,018,000 for next fiscal year. So those are additional funds on top of the general fund proposal. And so total general fund, all of that comes out to 10,059,000. Now we do see here that under volume 2, under the federal programs, there's 26,599,000. Do you know how much of this can cover personnel? I know earlier you mentioned that a lot of the grants that you've applied for does not cover personnel, but of this 26 million that was identified in volume 2, do you know how much of that can be used for personnel?
Yeah, Congressman, yes, that when it comes down to grants specific to the functions of the grants, so like for example, CREASE would be related straight for CREASE. So what we're asking for in the personnel here is not related to those grants directly, in a sense, when you're asking for. So the 35 would be for CREASE, would be a part of that 26 million. There's also a 12 to 15 million for the construction of U.S. Department of Education. So that's included in this component. So it's kind of misleading when it says 26 million. In reality, we're down to the 8.5 million. And of that 8.5 million, we used 7 million of it for personnel for specific projects. Okay, so that the different components of it for the contractual or the related functions of the specific requirements of those grants. So the 26 million includes a lot of the construction costs.
Thank you. So clarified. All right. At this time, I now open the floor to the members, and I recognize Rep. Abalta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome all of you to the House of Representatives this afternoon, taking time out to help us engage in this conversation. First of all, I want to say happy anniversary to NMC, and congratulations to Interim President Frankie Elliptical. You've shown that you've been flexible throughout the last 3 years. When other departments, right after the Super Typhoon U2, they were still squabbling around, thinking, where do we go? How do we pick up? You were able to just pick up and move on. And we don't hear too many success stories in our government, unfortunately. NMC is one of the success stories, and you wrote your own success story. So I want to say kudos to all your team at NMC. And it's difficult enough to graduate students under normal circumstances, and look at what you guys have done through this pandemic and through the super typhoon that you guys, after losing your campus. I want to congratulate all of you for that. I'm glad you mentioned the Law Enforcement Academy and the MOUs, MOAs that you've been doing with all these law enforcement, because I have crafted legislation that will put law enforcement academies back into NMC, so that you don't have to do these MOUs ever again, I hope. It's welcome relief to hear that you guys are looking at 2029. That is a big concern of the legislature with respect to imported labor. So I want to thank you guys for taking the lead along with your partners in getting the wheels for that in motion today, so that we're not caught, with our pants down, so to speak, in 2029. It's also, you mentioned about having incentives to hire apprentices. That's an easy fix for here at the legislature. It's just a matter of drafting legislation. We just have to consider the impact it has to businesses and to our government, because if we're going to give a tax incentive, obviously, that's less income for our government. So, but it's an easy fix, I think. What I would like to ask of you is has NMC ever done an analysis, and it would be helpful to policy makers. Have they ever done an analysis that for every dollar that is appropriated to NMC, what is the return on that to the economy? That helps policymakers or make better policymakers out of the legislature. I think we need to look at those kinds of figures as well. How much, does that generate back to our local economy? I would like to make recommendations. You guys have done so much and have expanded NMC programs from what it was 40 years ago. One thing I would like to see with NMC is that it become a licensure or hub, like a central testing agency for the region, not only in the Marianas, but maybe Micronesia, things like ASVAB certifications, NCLEX, CPAs, law, LSATs. I think that will generate more revenue for NMC, and I'm pretty sure that that's down the pipeline. It's just that you guys don't have the capabilities for that, but because you guys have been so successful in the past 3 years, where do I sign, Mr. Chairman, to give them the budget they're asking for? But thank you again. I just really have praises for all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I do want to respond to the questions that you mentioned. I really appreciate the question on what is the economic impact of the college. And this is what every year, and thankfully you guys won't have to see me up here anymore, but you're probably tired of me. But what I always mention in every budget hearing is to see NMC as an investment, not necessarily a cost item, because of the economic impact that we do have in the community. The college, as Dave mentioned, relies on 30% of our funds, but we're a $20 million operation, and 30% of that is paid for by local funds, but we find the funds elsewhere for the majority of the operations of the institution. So what comes back out into the economy is more than what we take in expenses. So we bring in the grant from Pell, we bring in federal funds, and the funds that we've secured for building the college are unprecedented. I can talk to you one-on-one maybe in one of those meetings to let you know what we got for each grant, but because we'll be pretty soon bidding many of these projects, we can't be openly public with the amounts, but I can tell you that they are unprecedented funds that will help build a lot of our economic, or at least help to strengthen our economic activities in the CNMI. We predict that the college will be the site of the most major construction site in Saipan for the next 3 years. But we really need your help because, again, most of the grants that Chairman Munganyo, you mentioned, some of those grants pay for personnel, but they're very specific to the grant. So if a grant gives us a particular fund, it will be to administer that fund or to help enforce the compliance of the fund. But the actual economic impact of the college is a lot greater than what we take in expenses. There has been studies, Guam did a study, and I think it's 4 times, meaning for every dollar invested in the University of Guam, there's 4 more dollars that come back into the Guam economy. We haven't done that. We haven't had the funds. You have to procure that study. We do want to do it. In the States, there are sometimes 5 to 6 times the economic impact. With regard to the testing center, we do offer testing center services, but as you mentioned, space is really limited right now on our campus. We are sharing offices. Many of the people in this office, here are sharing offices because we have 3 concrete buildings right now and 2 other buildings that we have that we're, using for office space. We have one, like one space where we put a lot of our faculty in one big space where they before had individual faculty offices. So we hope that in our new facility, we will have more space, including for a testing center. So we hope that will come to fruition soon.
Thank you, IP and Rep about that. Up next, we have Representative Lozama.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome. Good information. I want to congratulate you for the job well done. I know that the new president is going to be happy to take your job because it's already fixed. That's for sure. So I know that. Anyway, because you have a project, sidewalks, going down, I'm talking about down to Shell's gas station, maybe perhaps you can ask more money, because what I'm concerned as a PUTC, there's been a lot of accident in that corner. Can anybody, I mean, can someone from you say, let's do our research, get some federal grants, or get some money from this money that's coming to do research, because you put sidewalks there. We don't know if it's going to cause more accident. We don't know if it's going to cost more fatalities. It's been a record, and it's really sad that nobody is doing it. I wanted to talk to you, as a matter of fact, before you came to see what we can do, even DPW. So you here, what can we do for you? The money that's coming, perhaps we put some additional bit.
Thank you, Congressman Lozama. We actually have spoken with DPW about that. There's one power pole that is a DPW utility pole because it is what is carrying the street lights there. So we have had 2 fatalities in just the last 2 years, and I'm pretty sure more in prior years. Not so much fatalities, but other accidents in that one particular pole, which is across where the former Galaxy used to be. So we've spoken with them, we've spoken with DPW and other agencies to be able to redesign that area to move the pole back, and also to install guards that allow vehicles, if they do hit it, to bounce, some sort of shield. Because right now the concrete pedestal that's housing that base is what people are hitting, and it's a very hard impact. So unfortunately, 2 of the last accidents have resulted in immediate fatalities. So Patty, I'm going to ask Patty, because she's also been engaged with DPW and the Lieutenant Governor's office to address that issue.
Thank you. So Rachel and I met with the Transportation Task Force. Is that the name of it? And which is DPW is on, and so they already have a plan to redesign that area of concern that IP described. So they said that it's already in the works, and we should see it reconfigured by the end of this year. So thank you for raising that concern.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Lozama. Sorry, before you move on, rather than call for a short recess, I just have to step out for a few minutes. I hereby delegate Representative Ralph Yumo as acting vice chair. And up next, we have Representative Leila Stafler.
Thank you, Chairman and Acting Vice Chairman. And thank you, NMC, for joining us today. All of your great presentations. I almost cried during the first video, just want you to know. I was holding it back. Before we continue, we all just need to know, what is this green melon? I think I'm hungry.
So actually, Mike Ogle grew this in a container, aquaponically or hydroponically? What? Hydroponically with no dirt. So this is his first go around, and one of the challenges is, the weather is very erratic, and so there's challenges now with growing in the dirt and growing year round, etc. So this was Mike's first go around at this watermelon, growing it in a container. So I think he did a pretty good job, and we're going to do some sensory testing at Freeze, sniff, smell, etc. And hopefully when we have a sweet batch, we'll share it with you all.
Thank you for letting us know what fruit that was, and wow. Okay. I want to commend you on sharing your budget plan. I see your priorities focusing on the work development. I've been working with your team on that, and I know you guys have been doing this for a while. I only jumped in kind of midway, and so I appreciate all the beginnings that you have laid out for this very, very important work. I totally share your sentiments and just the urgency at which we need to do this. And so I applaud that. I also see your priorities for the buildings. As you said, that your building is a reimbursement process, so you have to be able to pay it up front, which is why that budget is so important. And also the increase 50% match. I did not realize it was a full 50% match, but for what it can provide to our community, it really goes to show that you are definitely making huge efforts to meet your mission and vision to provide immeasurable returns to our people and our community. I see that. So looking at your budget, I noticed in your key imperatives that you are wanting to focus on data systems. In your progress report to WASC from March of 2019, there's also information about data that's important. I wonder, is the data that you talk about in your progress report and the data systems that you are talking about in your key imperatives, are they related to the same things, or are they different data sets?
They should be related. I'm not particularly sure, Congresswoman Leila, which particular items you're looking at. But one of the things that we identify, of course, as including when we received the visiting team on October, is the establishment of a data warehouse that allows us to be able to identify key performance indicators for the institution, number one. Number two, have data that is collected, disseminated, and used in a routine basis to inform decisions throughout the agency. And that has been something that we continue to work on. I don't want to say it's a weakness, but it's something that really needs a lot of improvement because we are all collecting data, but we have not been able to come to a point where we've identified, okay, who collects what data, who disseminates what data, and who uses that data, and to whom it is reported to. Is it to the legislature, to the general community, to the governor's office, to our board of regents, to our donors, to our different publics that we serve? Because we want to make sure that we are accountable, right? Whether it's a graduation rates, whether it's our retention rates, whether it's our job placement rates, because we talk a lot about that, right? We talk a lot about our graduation rates, but how well are we placing our students in the jobs that they went to school for? Because it's one thing to say that they graduated. It's another thing to say that they landed the job that they wish to have gotten as a result of that degree. So we're closing that gap, and that's not something that we are facing uniquely as an institution, but we are also putting a lot of effort in, and that's working with, Dr. Taylor at PSS. She's a CTE coordinator. With Jolina Atta, we just again had a presentation at Chamber because NMC can't be all things to everyone, and we realize that. But what we want to do is make sure that every CNMI student, and when I say student, I'm not just talking about high school student, but any, as you can see, some of our students were in their 40s and 50s and some in their 60s, that they have the opportunity to pursue the passion that they are wishing to pursue, whether it's at NMC, at NMTI, at somewhere through our partner institutions at Framingham, at University of Guam. We just graduated the first cohort of bachelor degree holders in criminal justice this year through University of Guam for students without ever having to leave this, for those students without having ever to leave the CNMI. And your legal counsel here was a big part of that, so I want to thank him. But that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that these programs are available, because we know, and we can't fool ourselves into thinking that NMC is everything and hoard give us all the money because we're doing it all. And that's not the message we're trying to say here. We're saying that we're doing what we can to partner with a relative and appropriate agency to provide that training. So for example, if it's a construction accelerated pathway, we don't teach construction. So of course we're involving NMTI in that accelerated pathway. If it's entrepreneurship, SBDC is a big part of that. If it's Teacher Academy, that's something that is going to be part of NMC. If it's CNA, nursing, it's going to be NMC. But we're wanting to make sure that any student who has a passion in anything can pursue that by whatever program we have. I don't know if that was a long-winded way of answering your question.
It just goes to show how important your data systems are to inform how you establish educational attainment and completion goals for the priorities and imperatives that you've already started. So it connects. Thank you. I have one last question. It's kind of a two-parter. I was just looking at your data, the completion rates, and you mentioned that. I was curious about ABE. I know that it's not a huge part, but it's a very important part for people sometimes so that they can go on to your program or other programs. And I'm curious, since the pandemic, has your ABE participation or completion rates changed very much? And do the support services that you provide to your NMC students also, is that the same stuff that's available to your ABE students?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Dean Shar, I'm going to ask you to answer that question. I don't have the APE numbers in front of me, I must admit. But we do have in our citizen-centric data that we last submitted for 2020, it does have the APE numbers.
I guess I just wondered, has it changed much since the pandemic as far as ABE participation prior versus now?
Okay, we're actually seeing an increase in our ABE numbers and the continuation and the completion of our cohorts and our graduates. And we're also seeing it in continued enrollment as well.
Does the same support services that students get as an NMC student, do those services are they also available to ABE students?
They have their own set of support systems in place. We do have to be very mindful that the expectations of the separation of ABE with our NMC students is something that needs to be placed in mind at all times, and therefore the support systems come straight out of ABE.
Okay, thank you. Ayo.
Thank you, Chairwoman Staffler, for recommending Chairwoman Saban.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And first of all, Mr. Elliptico, I just wanted to say that I am actually, for the record, sad that this will be our last budget hearing with you. But I also want to thank you and commend you for just the outstanding job that you've done leading NMC these last few years through multiple disasters. And kudos to your team as well. My first question, as you're moving into more full-time face-to-face classes, is what is your vaccination rate at this point?
So the vaccination rate among employees is over 70%. We haven't reached the point where we're requiring it yet. And I know the reporters are. So the discussion among the leadership team is, like many other colleges and institutions across America, they're requiring the vaccines for their students come fall semester. And we want to make sure that we are also accommodating for religious or for medical reasons. But if a student does not want to get vaccinated, they can access the programs that are offered online. It's just not going to be the full slew of programs that we usually offer. So that's something that's developing. We haven't gone through the board for that approval, but we're doing the research. We have done the research. We've been doing the past 4 months of research. So you will see schools like Rutgers, the University of Hawaii, and many other big name schools already announcing that if you're going to take a course in the fall that's in person, you have to be vaccinated. I have requested information from the CHCC with regard to NMC because we don't have that data. The only thing we can do is poll anonymously from NMC. We can't directly say, hey, are you vaccinated? So when you register to be vaccinated, there is a drop-down menu to indicate whether you belong to NMC, Mount Carmel, MHS or stuff, but that only kicks in, that drop-down menu, if you are 22 years and younger. So if you're 23 years old and you want to vaccinate and you register, they don't ask you what school. And for Northern Marianas College, many of our students are 23 years and older. So I can't tell you, basically, short answer, what our vaccination rate is. I can only tell you that the movement for the fall semester is to require vaccination among our students who are going to take in-person classes. But students who wish not to, for whatever reason, can still access programs and services through our virtual classes and services that will continue in the fall semester.
Got it. Thank you for that. And then my next question is, what is the plan for the Northern Marianas Archives?
Oh, that's a good question. We do have a request because we have not received separate funding for the archives. I don't even remember when the last time we were, and I've been at the college for 13 years, so I've never seen a budget item for the NMC archives. And to run the archives takes a lot of resources, not just the staff, but one of the things that we need to, like after typhoon and other things, when we turn on the generator, one of the things we have to turn on is the archives, because, for example, the CNMI covenant is in there. That's the covenant that was signed between the local government and the federal government, the president, US president at that time. So those need climate-controlled elements. There are other really important documents in there, and there is a function mandated by law that the CNMI archives needs to be the archives for all the agencies, collecting all minutes and all records of all the agencies, not from the legislature to autonomous organizations. However, we haven't had the funding necessary to be able to, one, enforce that and fully staff it with a properly, trained archivist. Because to be an archivist, you need specialized training. You can't just, assign someone in there, which we have been doing. And unfortunately, we've had to do that just because of the funding limitations we've had. But in the new building, we will house the archives. We hope to have many of the things that we have on like historic documents on display, and have a nice archives, and also have people who come. Right now, many folks come in and use it to do their research. But currently, we're now housing the archives for one of our Project PROA because we don't have space on campus. So we do plan to include it in the flagship building where the library and the archives will be stored. So we do have that plan. We just don't have, we've never, I don't want to say never, but we have not received any funding for the archives since I've been at the college.
So the funding request for this year will cover what part of the campus? Okay.
Yeah, we actually, the last time we met the education committee, the representative asked us about that as well, and we included $50,000 for basic operations, because just one microfiche recorder, I guess how you call it, it's about $35,000 to get, and then just to keep the operations of the entity. Like my president was saying, that as soon as U2 hit, that's the first place that we put power back into, so we can maintain the conditions of the temperature, so they don't wilt away or the ink doesn't run dry on the documents. And then and we did ask for a it's not listed here as the actual solution, but we did incorporate it into the personnel cost of bringing somebody in.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for that. And I guess my last question is, well, I think maybe these could be answered together, but does the central government owe NMC money from prior years? And then to what extent will your startup cost requirements for construction be covered by tuition and fees, or any other funding sources that you have?
Savannah, I can answer the first part. The central government is up to date up to April 21st of 2021 under allotments to NMC. However, there's only one bill that was signed by National that hasn't been fully paid yet, and that's under review, I believe, with the legislature and the AG's office. So that is, we're pending that amount of $200,000. And then President.
That's the SNIOD funds that I think it was $208,000 that we have not received. As with regard to the startup costs for that we need to be able to start construction, we included that in the budget because as we mentioned, a lot of the funds that we've secured are on a reimbursement basis. So we want to be able to have the amount of cash in the bank necessary to be able to draw down when the funds are paid. So we put in a certain amount for that, and we've spoken with the governor, and he's been very supportive of that also, and knowing that a lot of these grants are not giving us upfront, like, hey, here's the money, go ahead and spend it. They want to see us spend our own money first to be able to do that. So we put that funds in. Also, the FEMA funds are 90%. So they're requiring a 10% match for all of them. So the FEMA funds that we've received are about $36 million. So of course, 10% of that is about $3.6 million in addition to the others. We've been very diligent with the other funding, Congressman, the other funding opportunities we've had, like EDA. Normally there's a match requirement, but we've asked them to waive it. We've asked other agencies and successfully they've said, okay, you don't have to match it, and other agencies to waive the matching requirement. But for FEMA, they have not, and it's still at 10%. We are looking at the other pot of funds is the CDBG-DR funds that will allow us to help match those funds, but we don't know that for sure at this time. And even our allocation of $14 million for 2 classroom buildings is not yet confirmed because they're still awaiting word from their national office whether or not the college's grant, which is our allocation, $14 million, which we thought was confirmed already, but it's put back into the pending column. So hopefully we will receive word within the next few weeks, but we hope that that won't require a match.
Okay, thank you. But so tuition and fees are not being set aside for any part of that startup cost requirement? That's for your other operations?
No, and the reason for that, Congressman, because tuition and fees pays for everything else at the college that's non-salary. That includes our electricity, which we always put into our budget request, but we never receive. So we have to fund our own electricity, school supplies, computers, everything to run an institution of higher ed, everything from lab equipment to everything. We don't receive any other funding for that. So to set that aside for construction would be not realistic for us.
Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairwoman Sablan. Just a quick question before I yield to Chairwoman Babauta. With regards to tuition increases, I know Wichi posted a nationwide increase of between 1.2 to 4%. Does NMC have plans to increase tuition at this point in time to fund, all the requests that from expanding of the road and so forth?
The quick answer to that, Congressman Yumo, is no. We do not have any plans at this time to raise tuition during the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, we were in discussions to raise it. And that discussion may come up again, but at this current time right now, we don't have any plans to raise tuition for the next year, just because we are seeing our students having to pay for a lot more expenses that are related to the pandemic, and many of them themselves have lost their jobs or have seen their hours reduced. So we just did not think this is the right time to raise tuition. Are we going to raise tuition? Absolutely. We just don't believe that that's going to occur in the FY 21-22 school year.
Thank you, IP Elliptical. I'll yield to Chairman about Rep Babauta.
Recognize Rep Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, IP Elliptical and your team for being here. Thank you for the presentation and all the information you provided to the members, and congratulations on 40 years. I'm very proud of NMC, although I am not a product. Hopefully one day. I have a couple of questions, and so I'm just going to get started. NMC CREES is a program I completely support. I'm very happy as chairwoman of the Natural Resources Committee to hear all of the investments we're making into the agricultural industry and our community. And like Chairman mentioned, it was zeroed out with none awarded by the proposal submitted by the governor. However, I had a question on your request for $716,000 approximately under all others. Is that for the 50% matching, or is that something you can just share with us? It was requested by NMC CREES. It is part of the packet at around $716,000.
Yeah, that's the actual combination of both research and extension components, and it represents half of what we actually need.
Right, okay, so that's
That is
only
the matching
half
requirement,
of the matching requirement. Okay, because I did see that it was over 1.5 million.
Right. So that
needed for the
actually
matching.
operates the functions of the programs. They all have those components.
Okay, so clarified. Thank you. My next question is in regards to your list of grants. The National Science Foundation, you were awarded a little over 45,000, but none has been expended. Can you just share with us why?
Which program?
National Science Foundation?
I'm sorry, I'm aware of the National Science Foundation, but there should be a, because we do have other grants from the NSF that we may have received also, but I'm not sure which particular program this is. It could have been the LSAM program, Dean Shar.
So what happens is with these grants also is when it's recorded on the expenditures, it won't show. So a lot of them get spent in the end of the semester. When this report came in, it was by February 28th. So that's one of the reasons why you won't see some expenditures recorded, because some of the LSAP expenditures just happened when the semester ended, when the students submitted all of their documentations of when they were participating in internships at different places throughout the CNMI. I think it's the Latville, BCQ, other areas.
I also, but I want to make sure, and I can get back to you, Congressman, about that. I want to make sure, because we do have several grants from NSF. It's not just one program, and we're also a sub-grantee for other programs under NSF. So with that particular grant, I just want to make sure too that we're talking about the same grant, so we can explain why we haven't drawn down. But like Dave said, it may be towards the end of the semester that we draw down all the different funds, because a lot of it, like most of the other grants, we pay the cost up front, and then we submit the invoices towards the end of the year.
Okay, okay, so
but I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. My next question is in regards to the degrees and certificates awarded from NMC. Very impressive, very reassuring to the response of our community's needs. The degree in natural resources management is one of the lowest, at 69 awarded in the academic year. Well, this is a range up to, let's see, the academic year 2010 to 2020. And can you just share with us how come that is really low? Just given, we see numbers here like 638 for liberal arts, we see, 241 for education, business administration at 249, and natural resources management is at 69. And, given our location on the map, given our diverse set of natural resources, how rich it is, and how it's really in need of protection and understanding too, right? Can you just share with us some of maybe the barriers you're facing in regards to this field?
Let me start by saying I 100% agree with you that that is an anomaly that I I continue to strive to understand at the college in terms of the natural resource management graduates. Because we have agencies like BECQ, CRM, Fish and Wildlife, and many other NRM-related agencies that are in need of personnel. And in fact, the graduates that we have graduated with their AA degrees are asking for their BA degrees. So I've spoken with individuals like Mr. Eli Cabrera, who's the administrator? Yeah. BECQ administrator, who says he wants to hire our students and we're not graduating enough of them. So that's something we're looking at. We go through a program review process that allows us to look at exactly what you're asking, Congresswoman Babata. What are the barriers? Why aren't we graduating more? And how strong is a relationship between NMC and the employers that are hiring these students? Because across the programs, there are some really strong relationships where, for example, the School of Education or the other programs have very good relationships with the employers, and they get picked up right away. But there are some other programs that may need to work on those relationships. So I know that the NRM program, and I'll ask Dean Shar if she has anything to add, that's one of the degree programs that I question, or that I know I've spoken with her about, is the NRM program that has the great potential. I see and many of you know Fran, and I'll give her a shout out in the budget hearing, Fran Castro, and she'll be happy to know her name came out during my budget hearing. But she works at the Sea Grant program in Guam, and they're, every week they're coming up with news about this grant and this initiative and that initiative, and the strong relationship they have with the sphere of NRM agencies. And that's something I wish to emulate, and that's something that Patty also, with regard to the aquaculture park, that we're doing. And I hope with the new facility, we're actually asking for property on Tinian for some of these projects. It's something that is still being initiated, but I hope that the next time, so please ask me that question again, Congressman Babata, the next time I come up here with regard to NRM, because that's something we're really putting a microscope on. And Disha, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I think you covered a lot, although it is important for us to again, I'm going to emphasize that many of our graduates are also looking into bachelor's programs, and we actually went in contact with the University of Guam to try to get some kind of a transfer or articulation with them, and that then due to happened, and so it's about time for us to come back around to that.
Thank you. Thank you. I really do appreciate your answers regarding the natural resources management field. I think that we definitely need to invest in our sciences and ensure the adequate protection of our natural resources.
Thank you. Congresswoman Babata, just to add on to that, I want to also say that nationally and through the federal programs, that there's a big focus on STEM programs, right? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we're also building a bigger research capacity among our students. And Hedwig is here, he oversees Project PROA, and it used to be more general, but now it's STEM focused. So you're going to start to see, and it's already starting, the college really changing its direction, especially as we draft a new strategic plan, to really focus on STEM related fields, because the federal government is already telling us that the funds that are being made available are focused and will give more to institutions that have those concentrations. Yeah.
Thank you for your comments, Chairwoman. And just to add to that, and your interest around NRM, Dean Shar, IVP Shar and her team, we've been working collaboratively with CREES to offer an agriculture degree. So there is quite a bit of interest in that particular area. And I think sometimes students are like, oh, I want to go into ag, but there's NRM, so maybe I'll pursue ag someplace else. So her team is working on that very closely with our faculty. And what CREES is doing is we're going to work off of that degree to offer a certificate program in ag, which is much more applied ag focused and kind of agribusiness focused. So that's just so you can hold us to that.
Wonderful. That's wonderful news. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that information. My last question is in regards to your master organizational chart. I'm very happy that, NMC has completed the requirement of the president. And I do see here in your organizational chart that there are a few interim positions. And I think it's very important that the leadership team, especially the master organizational chart, is complete and that, continuity is there. So can you just speak a little about the organizational chart? Is it complete? I see in the narrative that it only listed a few positions. It did not mention the Tinian Center or the Rhoda Center, and then all the other dean positions, director positions, et cetera. And if there's any, barriers as to recruitment or retention that you'd like to share.
Yes, thank you. It comes down two things, Congresswoman, about two things is funding. And that is really one of my hesitations was to fill some of the positions was because prior to the infusion of some of the federal funds that have come through recently, we were at a $3 million allocation when our payroll was $7 million. So really we did not have a choice. So either we hire those positions or we keep our employees and have them serve multiple roles. I myself, for example, serve 4 positions, and it wasn't uncommon for other folks to serve other positions. Now that we do have this infusion of cash from some federal sources, we are slowly hiring back into those positions. But what we want to make sure is that these are not recurring funds. They're not going to continue year after year after year. So we don't want to hire and fill all the positions only to have some of these funds dry up and then start furloughing some employees this time next year. So we're being very careful and deliberate, to the frustration and to the fatigue of our institution. But we just wanted to make sure that we are able to afford the payroll. And that's why you don't see NMC, you don't see us in the news with regard to Payless and other kinds of things that would raise red flags to our creditors, because we couldn't. So that's really one reason why we had a lot of acting roles. Number 2 is there are some positions that have been difficult to fill, and we are slowly filling, like the institutional effectiveness director. That's something that's required by the accrediting team. The other one is the IT director. We have been announcing it too. The other positions have been filled recently, but there are positions that have just really been difficult to fill just because there's no one applying for them on island. But depending on the budget that we come out with this particular year, we'll be able to fill some of those positions. But again, we didn't want to, and it's a fiscal policy that we at the college we don't have, that we have is not to tag salaries unless they know that are to sources that are not recurring, because we don't want employees to have this unexpected or anticipation that their contracts will be renewed when the funding source we know has a deadline. So we are very upfront with that, and we tell employees, like, you're on a limited term basis up until the end of this particular contract. So that's why you see some of those funds or some of those positions still on an acting role too, because we are having others take on the role to support the lack of funds for the other positions that we didn't get in that local appropriations.
I see. Thank you. And just thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you for being here. Congratulations on the new campus. I'm very excited to see that, and I'm very excited to visit, hopefully, a pub on that boulevard.
Thank you. Well, cheers to our first year. when it's open.
Thank you, Rep. Bavalta. Before I open up to the next member, I just want to go back to the 27. Earlier you stated you had 27 vacancies for this fiscal year. Has NMC received any of the ARPA funds to possibly fill those vacancies? I know you mentioned that it was used to pay prior obligations, but in order to bring back those 27 FTEs.
We have been able to receive some funding through the ESF, but also with regard to ARPA, because ARPA, there's two funding to ARPA. One was directly allocated to Northern Marianas College, and that funding was just identified over the last week. A lot of that funding, though, I want to emphasize, is funding that we at the Northern Marianas College need to directly give to students, meaning we are a pass-through organization for those funds. So that particular amount for the institutional and the student aid was $2.7 million each. So we want to make sure that that was, we want to make sure that that's emphasized, is that we're a pass-through organization, because we had a meeting at the the multi-purpose center, and they were saying that NMC was receiving $5-point-something million, but truly half of that was for student aid, meaning that we have to give it to them. We can't even say you have to pay your balance at NMC. The US DOE guidelines specifically prohibit that. They say give it to the students cash upfront, put in their accounts, give it to them in a check, but do not attach any strings to it, like pay for your balance at NMC or pay for whatever. So I want to make sure that's emphasized. The other half of that is allowing us to be able to use to help fund some of the salaries that we will be filling, but not necessarily in the levels that we do have. That's why we're still putting the 27. I'm not sure which we will be applying in terms of the 27 vacancies that we have, but I'm pretty sure that we can fund some of them. It's just not going to be all of them.
Sorry, just for clarification, you said that these 2.5 million, or these are from ESF.
The latest one is ARPA.
Right, no, but anything from the governor's pot of ARPA, is NMC receiving anything from that?
Yes.
Because the one that you mentioned earlier was the pass-through, but that is separate from.
Yes.
What's
So
going into
there's
the governor?
Yeah. So there's two funding streams basically from ARPA. One is directly allocated to NMC for the pass-through, and one goes through the governor's office that we then ask for and apply for.
Now, for fiscal year 2022, have you met with the governor to request additional funds from the ARPA?
Yes, and I believe that's what's recorded in the budget request that has been transmitted over. And we're also asking for additional funds to be able to fund other projects. We submitted a list of priorities. I don't have it with me. I'm not sure if the team has the list of priorities. We do have a 4-page, it's not a wish list, but it's a list of items that we would like to have funded. One of them is, for example, the buildings that we're building. We don't have any funds for the landscaping for everything else and the connection and all the other stuff that goes with building and buildings. So that's one of them. Number 2 is the DPW request that we have we spoke about earlier. Number 3 is parking structures. NMC does not have parking structures, so every time you go to NMC, you have to struggle to find parking. So because of the lack of land, we are having to build a parking structure that is probably going to be 3 or 4 stories high. Several other things that we've submitted to the governor's office. We submitted that last, I want to say a month ago, when we had that meeting at the multi-purpose center. But whether or not it's been funded or approved for funding is something that we have not heard from.
Thank you. And the reason I ask that is because we are expecting a revised budget submission come July 1st, and should none of your requests be included in that, in that revision. If you can provide the committee with a copy of those lists, that way, accompanying our budget would be a resolution to request for additional funds through the ARPA to fund all these other requests that never made it to the proposal.
Thank you. We'll share that list immediately. We have submitted that list, and there are other priorities for the institution there. For example, one of the things that we submitted was for funding for a healthcare training facility for the region. Because they are COVID-19 funds after all. So we want, in response to COVID-19, we want to be able to build a facility that would train our nurses, our radiology technicians, medical technicians, laboratory technicians, and other. We did get funding from EDA for the nursing department, but that was, we applied for that grant pre-pandemic. Now that the pandemic has forced us to kind of widen the scope of what we offer for healthcare workers, we need a training facility, and we want to be the training facility for the region. So we did put that in. I believe we had put a cost. Yeah, we put a, right. And Rachel is also reminding me that we did put dormitories on that list, as well as training centers for Tinian and Rhoda. So we're prepared. We've been asking, we have a list.
Thank you. All right.
If anyone asks me, every pot of funds we've been pursuing, Chairman, but we will be happy to share that list with you so that if you can, through your committee, allocate funds to some of those priorities, especially some of the ones for Rhoda and Tinian, and some of the ones that address the pandemic, we would really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Any other member?
Just comment.
All right, I recognize Representative Yumo.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question to Ms. Patty. I think you had one slide where America Samoa was the cost of living is kind of lower than CNMI. Is that, how accurate is that? The median for spending, I believe, you have up there.
Thank you for the question. So, sorry, next slide, please, IP. So this was a multi-site study, as you mentioned. So in American Samoa, this is the percentage of their median household income that a family of 4 would have to use to afford the thrifty meal plan.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I
it's
was wondering because American Samoa is actually farther into the ocean, I guess the Pacific Ocean, than the CNMI. We're closer to China, Philippines, and any Asian country. So I would think it would be a little bit cheaper. So I just wanted to clarify how accurate is that with regards to the shipping. I'm just curious about.
No, that's a great question, and I will say, which I neglected to mention. So we actually presented this at Experimental Biology to the scientific community, and we actually published the results of this in the Hawaii Journal of Medicine and Public Health. So it has been rigorously reviewed by scientists and experts in the field, in this particular field, to ensure accuracy. And I did neglect to mention that we just completed the second iteration of this just a few months ago, which was a year delayed because of the pandemic. So the analysis for that will be available in August, hopefully. So hopefully in the future, we can share the results of a more recent food cost survey.
Yeah, yeah, because we were at Rhoda a couple of weeks ago, and then Tinian. So I did go around and try to measure the price, the basic food, the eggs, milk, and you can see the big difference in the island of Rhoda. With Tinian, it's a little bit closer to the cinema. I guess there's more frequency of shipping, but I'm just just concerned with American Samoa and how low they are compared to us. I would think they would have been higher, maybe because they have a lot of food they grow, and they don't spend as much as how we do in the stores. I'm just curious. Thank you.
But it is, Congressman, if I may add, it's a very telling graphic that indicates, how much, especially residents of Rhoda, have to devote as a part of their salary to afford basic needs like food, close to 70%. And this is, like Patty said, that's what's informing the rest of our other programs is, my gosh, what are we doing for that community so that they can, they won't have to spend 70% of their income towards food, which you all need food to eat and to survive. So it's just one of those things that data is really informing a lot of our programs and how are we acting on it rather than just saying, oh, that's nice, but really like, my gosh, it's that by golly moment.
Yes, and just to add really quickly, so a part of our tissue culture initiative is to focus on soft taro, and that's particularly for Rhoda. And part of that is to see if we can use soft taro production as a displacement food for rice, which of course soft taro is nutritionally superior. And if we can grow it locally, all that money that we send off island to purchase rice can be, spent here instead. Additionally, I think it's also a really good, association for why we have the most agroforests in Rhoda. They've really there's more than 12 agroforests in Rhoda, and they're really taking on growing food in a very easy, sustainable way that doesn't usually require them having to purchase seeds off island. So yeah, we're trying to do our best to address this, and we're always open to hearing more ideas from all of you.
Thank you. I recognize Rep. Babalta.
Just quickly, going off of Rep. Umul's comment, where are the produce being harvested by NMC Crees or farmers supported by NMC Crees being sold? And are they labeled? Because if they were, I would most definitely be more inclined to purchase, the produce being supported or harvested by NMC Crees because of the trusted label.
Thank you. So we do have a portion of our produce is provided to food assistance programs. So Empty Vessel Ministries, Maturana. Sometimes we also provide to Caridot, and if there's a shelter that's in need, we also provide to them as well. We've also been able to work collaboratively, because this is a sensitive issue, with our farmers to help them understand that it is allowable, and we do need that extra non-federal dollar income to supplement some of our operations, not just operations expenses, because for the scientists and personnel that we can't recruit from the US, we are not allowed to use our federal dollars to pay for visas. And that's a considerable, it's like $8,000 or $9,000, and the cost continues to go up to have visa processed. So we do provide it to the Yarapan public market. We never compete with the farmers. Their produce is always prioritized, but generally we're growing things that they aren't. And I think it's actually really informative for them, because they see like, wow, people are really buying the cantaloupes and the melons. I should grow that. And we say, yes, you should grow that. So all of these variety trials and experiments are ultimately to benefit local agriculture. But I definitely, and part of the charge of our food scientists is going to be to do the local branding that you're talking about, Chairwoman, so that people can consciously buy local. So thank you for that probe.
Thank you. Any other member? All right. So just to recap, based on your initial request of this 16,411,000, should we get the waiver, then we can expect about 1.6 to be taken off of that ask. And so with what was proposed under the governor's submission, we have 8.18 million coming from the general fund and American Rescue Plan, as well as about 2 million coming from contract worker fund and compact impact fund. And so that'll leave us members with about around 4 million, 4 to 5 million to try to assist NMC in regards to their requests. And so with that, members, if none of you have any other questions, we would like to take this time to thank you, IP, Frankie, and your team, and again, the faculty and staff at NMC for all the work that you guys have done and continue to do, as well as to congratulate you, IP, and for all the work that you've done sitting in as interim president. And we look forward to continue working with you and the new president come July 1st. And so with that, members, IP, I now hand the floor over to you to provide any closing remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Magnolia, for this opportunity to speak. I know that some of the questions, we still need to provide some follow-up responses, and we'll be happy to do that. And we'll get back to you with regard to some of the list and NSF grants and other questions. We just want to make sure that we answer your questions fully. Number one. Number two, we want to answer your question about the waiver request that we've submitted. And if once we find out that it's been waived, we will let you know. And number three, I do hope to bring our new president, Dr. Galvin De Leon Guerrero, here for formal introductions, maybe throughout at your next session during that time or whenever it is appropriate, because the legislature is really a key partner of the college. And again, he's starting on July 1. So we hope that formal introductions can be made at that time. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, IP. And I see Ms. Coleman putting the props away, so those are not property of the house.
Well, it is. The other one, we gotta make sure it's sweet first.
All right, thank you, NMC and members. This brings us to the next item on the agenda, public comments. If any of your staff who did not get to speak today would like to say something, now would be the time. Otherwise, we move on to the next item, announcements. Members, is there anything you would like to announce? We do have CHCC tomorrow at 1 p.m., followed by DPS next Tuesday. Any other announcements? Recognize Rep. Avalta.
I just want to announce happy Pride Month to everybody, including NMC. Have a safe and joyful Pride Month, and including my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Avalta. Any other member? If none, next item on the agenda is adjournment. Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. This meeting is now adjourned at 4:27 p.m.
Can we do a picture with your team? Yes.